Third down and 1, 49ers on the 4-yard line coming out of the 2-minute warning. Purdy under center. Mason lone back. Throw. Ball got tipped by Van Ginkel. Caught by Debo, and he lost a lot of yards.
Debo took it from Van Ginkel. That was going to be an interception.
Injuries from the game, just one new one. Debo ended up having a calf strain. He'll probably miss a couple weeks.
Yeah, just casually starts off the press with that. Everybody panics. Ah! So the Rams have a bunch of injuries. 3 starting offensive linemen, plus Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, John Johnson. The latest, their safety to go on the injured reserve. And then the 49ers, of course, already missing CMC, Elijah Mitchell, and now they're missing Debo Samuel as well. What do they do from here? It's our good friend Larry Krueger, the Krug Show on YouTube. Make sure that you check that out as well. Plus Niners Nightly, which we'll ask him what he's going to be doing tonight. You can check that out on our YouTube page as the Giants have some baseball, just a little bit left, and then we're going to get Krug full-time on Niners Nightly right here on the big old blowtorch. And Krug joins us courtesy of the Uma Guest Line. And if you're on YouTube and Twitch, you can see Krug live.
Did you go to Maryland? Are you a Terrapin?
You know, Kevin Anderson was a good buddy of mine, and he was the AD at Cal, and then he went to Maryland, and we had him in studio, and we gave him some grief because he didn't bring us anything, and then he sent me like the entire bookstore. So yeah, if you have any Maryland needs, I've got lots of Maryland swag.
There you go, very nice swag. We're like swag. By the way, it was good to see you the other day. Nice to see you. I like seeing you here, but it's nice to see you. We saw Krug in the studio the other day. It was nice to see him. Walked in.
Seriously,
like,
I felt like I was in your guys' way, man. Seriously, I didn't let Greg get settled in time for the show, but
hardly noticed, Larry. Hardly noticed. Give my best to Damon Bruce. Yeah, we did see you.
Yeah. No, he
could have parked horizontally across his parking spot, but I decided not to.
Yeah, that would have been good.
No, Trent took my parking spot, NJ.
Yeah, the rolls. Stole it.
He sold the electric rolls, by the way.
What?
Trent
That's the biggest news of the day. What was that, like $1 million?
Did not make money on the sale, but
cars.
Let's move on here, Larry. Our time with you is precious,
Yes.
and we do value your thoughts on this because you study this like a madman. What do? We talked about their 5 eligibles being among the best the Niners have ever had, and any 5 eligibles in history, and now you lose 2 of the multi-positional guys. McCaffrey's going to be out a while, at least 3 more games, and Debo a couple of games. So just scheming it up in the personnel group, what do you see Kyle leaning on minus CMC and Debo?
Mason. I mean, a lot of Mason, I would hope, and maybe some Patrick Taylor. I kind of was impressed by Patrick Taylor in that final preseason game, but I thought maybe in this last game we didn't. The 49ers guys lead the NFL right now in time of possession. They've been 2 games in, they're possessing the ball 36 minutes and 44 seconds. They need more of the same. They need to dominate the time of possession, I think, protect their defense a little bit, and see if they can go with a run-heavy scheme featuring Mason a lot, and maybe a little bit of Guerendo, a little bit of Taylor. And as far as what they can do, I do expect them to pick up another offensive weapon. Will it be a wide receiver? Will it be a running back? I'm not really sure, but I do think they'll add somebody.
Larry Krueger joining us. I think for this weekend only, you look at the Rams, and their offensive line is obviously banged up. They're missing those receivers, so there's an ability to shut down that offense. But defensively, the Rams aren't stopping the run. Last year, they had all those young guys in, and they had some good drafts and everything else. But Aaron Donald is gone, and I just think, because I'm looking at them in the first 2 games, they barely lose in Detroit. They get blown out by the Cardinals with all those injuries, but they can't stop the run. So this week, and that goes back to what you're saying about a running back, Jordan Mason is getting criticized for not being CMC, but he's second in the NFL in rushing, and he's averaging 5.1 a carry. So they're damn lucky to have him. I expect a lot of Mason, but my concern becomes, when Elijah Mitchell went down, we didn't really think a ton about it. But then now Elijah Mitchell would be great to have around, 900 yards rushing as a rookie. And Guerendo just in college didn't have a ton of carries. He hasn't had much with the 49ers, but I think that indicates that they don't trust him yet. So can you keep running Mason? He had 28, then he had 20. Can you keep running him into the 20s, or do you need to have somebody, like you said, you'd bring somebody in, maybe a Breida who knows this thing? What do you do here?
I think Breida's an interesting name because he knows the offense, and I thought he looked pretty good this preseason, to be completely honest. He wasn't the Breida of old, but he looked pretty good. But I think you have to because, Guerendo is a intriguing size speed guy who I think could be a good kick returner and I think could be a valuable player on this team long term. But as far as running back instincts, that ability to pick and slide and slither through holes and get real skinny at times and read things and read blocks. And, he's just very raw. He's just very raw. So that's all I would say about Guerendo is I like him. I think he's raw. I don't think he's ready. I do think they need another guy. I would go with Mason. I think you just got to have communication with Mason and find out how his body's feeling. And if he's any worse for the wear, because he has taken some big hits, but he's a big kid and he's young, who maybe he's all right.
Now, he can handle the run stuff. It's just, the interception Brock threw over the middle. Kyle Juszczyk ran that Texas route. So you're missing McCaffrey. And, with McCaffrey, he's halfback, half, slot receiver, all football player, and Debo's the other way. So Mason can run the ball, but you don't have a weapon out of the backfield. Guerendo, Larry, because you were there in the spring for OTAs and mini camps, and he got hurt right in training camp. But the first thing, and I agree, I think sometimes on the outside zone he's kind of searching for which hole. But the one thing he can do with his speed at 4.33, and he runs a 1.54 the first 10 yards at 221 pounds, and correct me if I'm wrong, when he was younger, he was a wide receiver they converted to running back. He doesn't run McCaffrey routes, but the pass game element you lose from McCaffrey and Debo. Can Guerendo give you some of that? Maybe not run routes. I think he can beat Troy Reeder over the middle on a Texas route. But Brock has been talking about, I missed the check down. I missed the check down of McCaffrey. Guerendo can provide to you a size and speed weapon as a check down receiver, can he?
Yeah, no, I think that's the ideal way to use him right now because he's best. We saw him in the preseason game go for 93 yards. What was that? Well, it was like a running play. It was a kickoff return, but there was more space. I think he's a guy that you can toss him the ball. I think he's better outside the tackle box. I think he's better in wider spaces when he's got to just make quick decisions inside and kind of feel it, where other running backs have these sharp cuts. He has more rounded cuts. I just think that he's better in open spaces. So I like that idea. I like the idea of getting him isolated, maybe in the flat against a defender, one guy, make a miss, and now it's off to the races because he's got that kind of home run speed. But I look at the Rams guys and say they had Ernest Jones. He demanded out. He had 150 tackles last year. Now they've given up 5.3 and 5.8 a carry, and here come the Niners. So I would say this has got to be a run it down the Rams' throat kind of a game. Almost kind of like, was it a couple years ago was it a Monday night or Thursday night? Kyle came out with an 18-play drive.
Yep.
That kind of beginning, I think we may see in this one.
Well, if you look at it, the first two games, Detroit went 31 for $162 and 2 touchdowns, and last week Arizona went 40 for 231 at 5.8 a pop. So they've given up 393 rushing yards on 71 attempts in their first two games. It shouldn't be, we look at each game and we say, okay, Debo's out, CMC's out. What exactly do they do? Well, they have a battering ram in the backfield, and if that's what they're giving up, that's going to be a problem. And the 49ers game plan should easily be Mason. But my point is that if you don't trust Guerendo in a game like this, then you got to find a second back to at least give 8 to 10 carries. If it's not him, then you got to bring somebody onto the roster, whether it's the practice squad, like you said, Larry, or Breida, who knows the offense, somebody that Kyle trusts. They're going to need a second back because I think they're going to run the ball 40 times against the Rams because that's what's happened in the first two games against them.
Yeah, and the options would be Patrick Taylor Jr., Keyshawn Vaughn, the former Tampa Bay Buck, is on the practice squad. He's an NFL back. He doesn't have home run hitting ability as far as, he's not a speedster, but he's 220 pounds, 215 pounds. He can break tackles. He can run between the tackles. He can read blocks. So you do have, it's not like you're naked, but I agree with you, John. They're going to need somebody else to take up a dozen carries.
Keyshawn Vaughn is really impressive. He is shifty. He is the scout team running back, and he looked like Breece Hall, The way, the jump cutting and the moving. I think Guerendo's going to, you're losing Debo as a kick returner as well. So Guerendo, I think, becomes the kick returner here based on what he showed against the Raiders. They got to get Jacob Cowing going a little bit out of the slot.
Yes.
We'll see. And I think Trent Taylor will get a jersey on Sunday, and they'll activate him from the practice squad. But let's talk. We're concentrating on, losing Debo as a running threat. He is a wide receiver as well, and you can't run the ball 80 times against the Rams. You're going to have to throw the ball some. They're going to load the box. But Brandon Aiyuk, Larry, just looking at the All-22, where was he against the Jets? I thought, in certain matchups against Stephon Gilmore, it was begging to go to him outside the numbers. The Vikings and Blake Cashman, their great linebacker, were choking off the middle of the field and all the in-cuts. They got to get more out of Brandon Aiyuk. But why haven't they gotten at least more week 2 from week 1 when you studied it?
Well, Greg, I think it's just a timing thing up front where when he has been open, Brock doesn't have the window. I mean, I just got into the All-22 late last night on both games, and that's what I saw. I thought I was going to see Aiyuk being blanketed because most of the time I feel like when I watch the TV copy, I'm not seeing a lot of space created by the Niner receivers. But when I watched the All-22 on this last game, there was some, there were times when Aiyuk cleared and got separation from the corner, and there was a couple times there was somebody just right then crossing Brock's face and he couldn't throw it. So I just think it's the timing hasn't been right, but I think Brandon's rounding into shape. He's not in the same shape he was last year, but he did get separation in this last game, and I expect him to be a major factor in the next couple
What
of weeks.
did you think about this play? Because, John, we were talking about this earlier.
Oh, he's so open.
The 1st and goal from the 4-yard line, and it's on the right hash. So
Yep.
Brock's going to run the stretch left. You get a good look at it from the end zone. He runs the stretch left, and it's a keep or a boot, as Kyle he calls it a keep. And Aiyuk's the outcut here. This is where the timing is off, and Aiyuk runs himself right out of the end zone. He's got to stop there and go back the other way. But why didn't this hit, do you think, for a touchdown?
Well, I mean, to me, it just doesn't seem like Purdy got his eyes out to Aiyuk quick. I mean, quick enough. And by the time he did, Aiyuk was momentum carried him out of the corner of the end zone. If you look at that end zone copy, doesn't it look like he
was late?
He looks like he's looking at the receiver in the middle of the field, not the receiver.
But he's starting on the right hash. There's a long way to go. And it's not the college. You'll see it from the end zone here.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So where do you want him to pick it up?
I don't know if he can sit down, though, because the defender's trailing.
Just stop. Don't run out of bounds. Do not go out of bounds. You're out of bounds, you're dead. You're OB. Yeah. Just stop. Just come back to the ball.
I mean, kind of like Debo did on the sideline. You just when you get to the edge, you plant your feet and you lean. You lean, right? You lean.
You just don't go out of bounds.
If you can make the catch, you make the catch. And if you can't, you can't. But out of bounds doesn't matter if you catch it perfectly. You're out of bounds.
And just to describe to people what we're talking about is that was the one where they got stopped on 4th down. Kittle catches the one on 3rd down to the 1, and then the ball's batted down, and then this
was 1st and goal. Right. This was 1st and goal.
That's what I'm saying. But then 2 plays later they get the play. Yeah, so we didn't talk about this a ton yesterday. Again, we're talking semantics here. I think Brock should have seen him right out of the gate, and he threw it too far out. If Aiyuk stops, I think that the defender catching him because he's in trail. But regardless of the situation, they got to score on that play. And I'm not saying it's
Patrick Peterson play last year, John. He was completely covered on that play. Just stop. Do not go out of bounds.
He's got to throw the ball faster. He was
late
on the throw, too. I mean, it's both. He's late on the throw.
He's on the right hash. That play takes time, Larry, to develop across the formation to make that work.
One of the problems with Brock Purdy, and I love the guy, but Mahomes slings that out there. I mean, he doesn't need to turn his entire body. Brock's got to get in position to throw that ball, and he's late. I mean, he's late.
I thought he took a real long look at the receiver in the middle.
He also had to clear the end. He has pressure on the end.
There we go. I see it.
Damn thing.
Yeah, there it is. Right there.
Yeah, right. He's looking. They got to clear the end.
He opens his shoulders like he's looking at the receiver. Was it Kittle? Was on the inside there?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let me see. He's also got to clear Dallas Turner, Larry, on that play to be able to make that throw across. I mean, it's on the right hash. If it was on the other hash, he can get there. But that's
a quicker release. It's a quicker play.
It just takes a while for that play to develop there. Anyway, so watching the playback. The game back, the bottom line is and I saw it live because where we were, Aiyuk was open and the ball, was he not, even second in the progression? It looked like a lot of times he was third in the progressions when they went backside to him.
Well, it just seems like he lacks rhythm right now with Brock, and I don't know if that's from missing all the practices because God knows they were in a great rhythm last year, but they haven't really established that rhythm on the practice field yet, at least from what I've seen. I haven't seen Brock get into that rhythm like he had last summer with him. And maybe it's just repetitions. But obviously, Brandon's got to become a huge part of this offense, like immediately against the Rams, even though it should be a run-heavy plan. With the weapons they're down, Aiyuk's got to step up and have a huge game. To me, I've been disappointed with what I saw from him. I've been disappointed with what I've seen on film from Jake Brendel. I feel like Brendel's getting worked in the middle pretty good. And I'm not seeing a lot out of Javon Hargrave on the defensive side. I really thought Hargrave and Collins guys would dominate the interior in this game and make, really have their presence felt. I didn't get that vibe. I didn't see that dominance in this game.
Other than the one play, Hargrave got through and then Gross Matos got him. But yeah, you're right. The other thing about the defense is Fred Warner, and if you go back and look, Nick Bosa was standing, is that final drive in which Minnesota took the clock down from about 10 minutes to about 3.5, and they went 3 for 4 on third downs, but they got the 26-yarder when they needed 11. They had another 7-yarder that they converted as well. That's the situation. It's 20-14 where I thought, okay, the defense is going to bow here. They're gonna step up. They're gonna get the ball back, and they just didn't. So if we want to look at everything, special teams getting a punt block, Cowing drops a punt, the defense giving up third down. What was it, 7 for 13 or something like that on third downs? This was just a system-wide failure offensively, defensively, and special teams.
Well, it wasn't. To me, the play on that drive that was the most frustrating, and I felt like the entire drive felt different after this play, was the first third down. They were 3rd and 7 at the 33. They were about to get off the field. There's no Addison, there's no Hawkinson, there's no JJ. And you're thinking, okay, hey, Niners are going to get off the field. They're going to get the ball with 9 minutes left. They're going to down 6. They're going to win this game. And instead, Darnold goes to Brandon Powell, and it was pretty clear that Yadam and Mooney had a miscommunication. Neither went with Powell, and he was wide freaking open. So, that to me was a major bust, a major breakdown. And you heard it from Fred at the podium in the postgame. He's like, hey, there's only so many, my bads we can have. And I'm sure those guys went back to the huddle, and one of those two guys said, hey, man, that was my bad. I should have gone with this guy. But that miscommunication, I thought, might have been the game clincher right there, because the rest of that drive, I felt like Minnesota was in control. Darnold, that beautiful throw that Darnold back-shouldered Naylor for 27 yards, I thought that was his best throw of the day. He threw that with anticipation, and he put it right where he needed to put it. So, but that 3rd and 7, that first 3rd and 7 was the backbreaker.
And they motioned to that play, and the Niners had their dime defense with 4 defensive backs on the field.
Yeah.
I know, and we're going to break it all down coming up in the playbook, a lot of these plays, including the block punt. Robert Beal and Demetrius Flanagan fouls are the culprits on that one. The deep shot to Justin Jefferson, and just having, Charvarius take the crosser and, leaving 2 safeties to run with a guy that runs a 4.41. It seemed like Kevin O'Connell and his offensive staff wanted to get the Niners where their safeties matched up with wide receivers. Sometimes the Niners moved them and lined up. I know you were impressed with Nick in the first game against the Jets. Was there it was men getting beaten, blown by, but how do you run with Justin Jefferson? Were there some situations where they were beaten pre-snap by defensive alignment, Larry?
That's a great question. On that particular play, I think it highlighted 2 things. One, Jair Brown took 2 false steps, and you can't take 2 false steps against a guy who runs quite a bit faster than you. The one thing about the Niners that's a real problem, and it's a personnel thing, they don't have a safety that can really cover. Hafanga's better in the box. Brown's better in the box. And I don't know about Mustafa. We're going to find out about Mustafa, but a lot of their young guys are better up on the line of scrimmage. And do they have that player that can cover the deep middle? I'll say this, watching that, I thought, man, I'd love to have Mooney on Jefferson. I'd love to have Demo on Jefferson, and to get Jefferson, basically, Odom was just hustling, but it was really a Jair Brown gaff. Jair Brown, that's not Jair Brown's game. That's the weakness of his game. That's how you can be as athletic and as productive as he was at Penn State and wind up in the 3rd round is he doesn't have great long speed, and it got shown there. As far as pre-snap, were they in the wrong alignment? I'd have to go back and look at that again.
Larry, good stuff, man. What do you got going tonight?
JD's going to stop by. We're gonna wrap with JD. It's a players off day, so we'll be doing more film review and that kind of thing, going through trying to the autopsy on the loss. I think people just need to relax. I mean, the bipolar, Purdy's not the guy and Shanahan's not the guy. I mean, it gets a little nauseating. I know you guys don't go in that direction, but many, many people do. But we'll talk a little bit about the Rams. We'll start looking ahead to the Rams. I do think this is the get-right game.
Absolutely. Thanks, Krug. Appreciate it, man. Great stuff.
Thanks, guys.
All right, Larry Krueger, make sure the Krug Show, you make sure you check it out on YouTube. He does a tremendous job on there. Lots of great guests and breaking down all the stuff. And then, of course, Niners Nightly, which when there's Giants games, he puts that on YouTube. We put that on YouTube, so make sure that you check that out as well and follow Larry. Does a lot of great stuff, not only the Niners, on everything. All right.